Hi, I want to talk to you today about how it never ends. Okay, so this is going to be about diagnosis and how it can make or break a person's life. Um, about diagnosis with anything, like it can be anything, but mostly I'm going to talk about autism because that's what this channel I want to be it to be about. So I'm gonna talk about my own experience maybe in the next video, but this is gonna be part one, and part one is gonna be about what like when is it okay to diagnose somebody without their consent? Well, not when is it okay with their consent, but when do they have enough information to be able to make an informed choice to get diagnosed? And only that person knows, whether they have enough information or not, and nobody should make that decision for them, and because like if they insist on it, then they should be allowed to, like they'll bear the consequences of it later. It's better than like taking away their freedom to, but if they don't want to get diagnosed, I am totally against, like, one thing I'm totally against is diagnosing someone without their consent. And over their objections especially, and well, just as much as without their consent, if they don't object, if they're too scared to object or whatever, and or if they don't even know what's happening until after it happens. And because like I remember I was diagnosed with bipolar once, um like in 2008, the first time I was ever diagnosed with bipolar. um it was like I only found out that I'd been diagnosed with anything at all. Like they just like were just like playing along with my depression story, which was true, But then I found out when I was like, had been when they admitted me to the psychiatric hospital. Oh yeah, like yeah, you're bipolar, and here, take this, and the like the papers that I was served, like for like being involuntarily committed, and that like said that I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and that's the first time I found out that I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. It was 4 days after I saw the psychiatrist that like admitted me to that place. But anyway, that's another story. Let's just go back to like the autistic stuff. Okay. Um, like it can ruin a person's life if like there's a lot of stigma. Like only you can decide whether you want a diagnosis or not, and only you should be allowed to decide whether you want a diagnosis or not, because it can make your life or it can break it. And unfortunately, it more broke mine than made it. I mean, maybe that's not true, because I found like a lot of people, but I didn't need a diagnosis to find those people, like an official diagnosis. I could have just like self-diagnosed and found those people anyway. People that I love, that I met, because they're autistic when I met them in autistic groups online. But you don't need an official diagnosis to do that. And a lot of the people that I met didn't have official diagnosis, and a lot did. But like it can, like a lot of people, like people who want a diagnosis should have more access to it, and people that don't have a diagnosis, or I mean that don't want a diagnosis, shouldn't be forced to have it. Like all resources are kind of being misplaced and misused on all these people that are being forced, when it should be for the people that would like kill for one. I mean, it's all about control, it seems sometimes. And it can, you know people have been like, people who wanted to join like the Peace Corps have been denied because it said like their diagnosis in their like medical records, which you have to like divulge to them. Some people who wanted to join the military in certain countries couldn't, because those countries had a rule against it in the military, or against it in certain occupations of the military, or against it in certain position, in certain like ranks or positions of the military or whatever. Other people, one woman I knew whom I met at a shelter, she was autistic, and she worked at a daycare as an administrator who was like a scheduler and everything. She was really great at it, but she hated how the autistic children in particular got treated at that daycare. And when she spoke up, and then she said that it was because she was autistic, and she knew how it was like and how horrible it was to be treated that way, then that, or how horrible it would have been for her to be treated that way at that age. Then they fired her, and they told her, you know they told her that she was too handicapped to work there. She's suing them, and that's a good thing. I'm glad she's suing them, because she deserves to sue them, and she deserves to get something from that. because that is disgusting. And there is then there was another woman online, and she was really good at first aid and CPR and stuff, and she saved the life of she was the babysitter of a woman's child, and she saved the life of that child once, but and the child was autistic. And then when she divulged later that she was autistic as well as the child, and that's why she understood the child so well, the parents fired her, saying that she was not up to the job. They didn't trust her to do the job because she was autistic. That's the most disgusting thing ever. If anything, she was more qualified to do the job because she was autistic. Because her son, because that couple's son was autistic, and like the discrimination is unbelievable, and that is why a lot of people do not want to get official diagnoses and self-diagnose instead, and it follows you around, and it can ruin your life. And a lot of the time, I'll tell you my story in another video because it's long, but um, it's just other people have had terrible things done to them in the name of psychiatric help or psychological help or special education. Like, just look at the Judge Rotenberg Center. Just ask some survivors of that place. Like I talked to a few survivors of that place, and a few of them were autistic people. But all of them, are equally, in need of recognition. But I'm just focusing on autistic people because that's what this channel is. But they just have horror stories, and the whole ABA is wrong. It is wrong. I mean, it's wrong by its very foundation, by its very definition of what it is. It's wrong, and that we'll get into that in another thing. There's always another way to do it, and I'll get into that in another thing. And there's a lot of people about this, a lot of videos you can watch, but a lot of things you can from autistic people themselves read about it. Groups you can join full of autistic people that will say all of these dehumanizing or punitive interventions are the opposite of good. They don't work because they're cruel, and cruelty doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's cruel. Who would want to obey somebody that they're scared of or that they're angry at because they were treated badly by that person or that they were dehumanized by? If they do, it's out of fear. And then they're faking who they are and everything, and because out of fear, and nobody ever finds out who they are because they're told, oh, nobody will ever love you unless, nobody will ever like you until, that kind of thing. And that's just not true. In this whole huge world, nobody's ever going to love you as you are. Nobody. No, I don't believe you. And anyway, even if it was that way, there's always somebody somewhere. Then aren't you better off alone than full of around a bunch of dangerous people who are dangerous to you? I mean, nobody's ever really alone, and I can get into that in the more spiritual, videos. But that's a different thing. But and it's not just people. I mean, some people are more into animals. Some people are more into plants. Some people are more into their spirit guides. It's not just people that people should be forced to be around, I mean, not forced. Nobody should be forced to be around anyone. That's what I meant. I meant nobody should a relationship should be a voluntary thing. And anyway, now back to there's just so many ways that a diagnosis can ruin someone's life. I mean, it can limit opportunities. It can cause discrimination that's either illegal, or sometimes in some places it's even legal, or it circumvents the whole legal system, even though it's and appears to be legal when it's not, or whatever, or it appears to be sort of legal and sort of not at the same time, and let's do an injunction here or an exception there or an amendment here, and I don't know, but at least I'm so glad that I never suffered through a lot of the things that a lot of my fellow autistic people suffered through, because I only got diagnosed later, and I don't think my parents would have bought into a lot of the stuff that a lot of these people's parents bought into. But my mother was really brainwashed, but she wasn't so brainwashed that she'd have done that, but the ABA stuff and all that some people went through, and that I was just horrified by. And even the supposedly fun ABA is still, you're trying to make somebody into somebody they're not, because they're seen as not good enough as they are, or as too bad as they are. and that really is really damaging in itself. So how is that fun, in the long run? And the long run is a very short term, so you're going to find out fast, because it's only a matter of a few years at the very most when they're going to open their mouth and say, oh my, well, they're going to have very low self-esteem, and in some way, they're, even if they don't open their mouth, in some way they're going to say, tell you, if you pay attention, in some way, in some behavior, whatever, that they're unhappy because, and have low self-esteem because of what was done to them, because of the way they were treated, because of, you know they're seen as defective inherently, and nobody is. Everybody is the good part of themselves, and the bad part of themselves is not part of themselves. It's just something they've got that they have to work around, and that they have to get rid of, or like just assimilate and make it like just to disable in themselves, to make sure that it never comes out like that. And that's not anything to do with autism. It's just, autism is just a soul pattern, basically, for lack of a better word. I mean, it is a soul pattern, but for lack of a more scientific word, I mean, like, so scientific word, and like, I think that, like, people just need to be careful when they suggest someone get diagnosed, because some people are also just like impulsive. They have to just like try and inform the person that wants to get diagnosed, even, like, hey, this is what might happen if you get diagnosed, but like, it's your choice. And that's the first part of what I have to say. And the next part is going to be about my own experience. I have a lot more to say about this also, so I might have another opinion piece too coming up. But yeah, thanks for listening.